Latrell Mitchell is out, and I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a huge kick to my New South Wales Rugby League penis. But in comes the greatest Game 3 specialist, the undefeated Bradman Best. That is one of two key changes Michael Maguire has made to his Game 3 team. The only forced change, and to be honest, there were a few options when Latrell Mitchell went down with the news the other day. And to be honest, my first thought was Turbo, and that's of course because he's absolutely ripped apart Queensland before, but looking at the way he played against the Cowboys, you can understand why he wasn't being able to be picked. It's clear he's not 100%. I mean, Seabelt had rushed him back after just 3 training sessions, so it shows where Manly are at, but there's no way you could have picked Turbo. The other thought that I was also thinking Michael Maguire would go was Matty Burton. Obviously, Burton was in the Game 1 squad and has been a part of the New South Wales setup for a number of years now, but I guess Bradman Best is the man they've gone with, and to be honest, it was the man I would have gone with. I mean, it's funny how rugby league works. We're talking about Bradman when he tore apart the Parramatta Eels, saying if it wasn't for injuries, he probably wouldn't be playing State of Origin. Well, here it is. But it's no doubt, while it's great for Bradman, and while I'm so confident he's going to do a job for the great state of Sky Blue, Latrell being out is such a disappointment. Obviously, not just because he's out for New South Wales, but in terms of the spectacle of State of Origin, it's one of the most hyped deciders of all time, and Latrell Mitchell's redemption arc in the Game 2, him going to have a chance to win a decider at Suncorp, something that Latrell Mitchell actually hasn't had to do in his career, having that career-defining moment. Unfortunately, that has been robbed of him, and it sucks because Latrell Mitchell has hit some of the best form we have seen from him, especially in a South Sydney Rabbitohs jersey. I think what the Blues will miss most is his presence. We saw just how much Queensland, especially on that right edge, basically gravitated towards him, and it gave room for Luai. It gave room to Angus Crichton, and it gave room to Toto. Toto scored 2 tries. Latrell scored 1. Angus Crichton played one of the best games he's ever played in rugby league history. And that's saying something because obviously Angus Crichton might just be the best back rower of all time. So I think Latrell's presence is going to be missed greatly, especially on that left-hand side. But I mean, he is a game breaker. And while Bradman Best is easily one of the guys that someone like Luai can just give the ball too early and he can create some sort of space, he's probably not the exact same guy who Latrell Mitchell is. And Bradman Best was terrific in Game 3 last year. That was a dead rubber in Sydney. This is an Origin decider. This is a career-defining game for nearly every single player on this team who gets picked. Jerome Luai can establish himself as one of the game's best halves, nearly one of the best halves of this generation. Mitchell Moses can establish himself as probably the man to lead New South Wales, despite how good Nathan Cleary has been in the back end of rugby league seasons, especially on the first weekend of October. Dylan Edwards can cement himself as not just a job doer, but one of the best fullbacks. Brian Toto is already one of the greatest wingers of all time. If he goes and does what he does in an Origin decider at Suncorp, he will be put into that top tier category, and he's still probably got most of his career to play. Jake Trbojevic can set himself apart and be one of the best players to ever adorn a New South Wales Blues jersey, especially in the forwards. Jake is probably already in the Blues best 17 of all time. He can probably become a number 1 starter. If Payne Haas can go and have that Game 2 performance at Suncorp where he plays his home ground footy, he becomes the number 1 front rower in the competition. So it's not all doom and gloom, and like I said, Bradman Best is a terrific option. Obviously, you had Burton, you had Turbo. I think Best is the option they had to go with, so I'm glad they have done it. The other change, which wasn't forced, is Olakau'atu is out. Mitch Barnett comes in, and I do feel bad for Olakau'atu. Obviously, I love him. He's probably the best back rower in the competition at the moment, not named Angus Crichton. And without Turbo, he's basically been close to Manly's best player outside of obviously DC and Jake over the past few years. So it does suck for him. Unfortunately for him, most of his Origin career thus far has been played with 12 men. I think one day he's going to solidify his spot on the starting edge because he's still only very young, hasn't even come close to hitting his prime just yet. But it's clear that Madge has a game plan to play his back rowers for 80 minutes. When you got Liam Martin and Angus Crichton, it's easy to understand why. And if one of those guys does go down, then Mitch Barnett can come in and do a job on the edge, but he can also play through the middle. So I think Mitchy Barnett becomes a more valuable asset off the bench, but also I just think his club form has been so much better than Olakau'atu's. Obviously, Olakau'atu started the season red hot, has been a bit quiet since Origin, to be honest. Obviously, had that injury scare against the Penrith Panthers Panthers, was great against the Dragons, but was pretty poor against the Cowboys on the weekend. While Mitchie Barnett has been far and away the best player in what has been, for the most part, struggling Warriors side, especially in the forward pack. I mean, he stepped up. Tohu Harris has dealt with so many injuries. Vanul Blake hasn't lived up to what he did last year, but Mitchie Barnett is the man. He's been the heart and soul of the Warriors this year, and he's keeping them in it. Obviously, they had that blowout loss to the Titans. Outside of that, they've played above their weight despite all the injuries they've had. He's probably going to be in the Dally M Team of the Year, so I think he's done more than enough to warrant a spot on the bench. Obviously, for the makeup of the team, you could argue he should just come in for an Isaiah Yeo, but obviously they're not going to drop Isaiah Yeo. Whether you think that Jake Yeo and Murray is going to work, I guess Michael Maguire wants to stick with locks. And with how many good ones there are, you can't blame him. I mean, Victor Radley would probably be on this side if he didn't decide to go play for those bloody Poms. Obviously, this is going to be a much harder task than Game 2. I mean, to be fair, Game 2 couldn't have gone much better for New South Wales. And as good as Luai and Moses were, probably the easiest games ever to play as a New South Wales halves. And that's a credit to the forwards. Obviously, Queensland, their team will drop Monday morning, so you guys will already know that by the time this comes out. And the rumour is they're going for Grant and Kalen Ponga, and if Grant's out, they're going for Reid Marnie on the bench. That's two smaller forwards, which means that the other two bench forwards are going to have to play plenty of big minutes. And Collins, Cotter, and Carrigan didn't fire a shot in Game 1 because they were so fatigued of the amount of possession New South Wales got early. And while that's very unlikely to happen again, if Payne Haas, Jake, Cameron Murray come out and do what they did in Game 2, then, oh my God, Queensland are going to be struggling through the middle. And as long as they can match with New South Wales in the middle, they've still got the strike power, they've still got Reece Walsh, and they've still got that guy in the halfback jersey, which is a career-defining game for him. But let's not talk about Queensland filthy cane toads in a pro New South Wales Blues video. So it sucks Latrell Mitchell is out. A huge opportunity for Bradman Best. A career-defining game for every single player that has been named in the Game 3 side. But ladies and gentlemen, let me know, do you agree with the changes Michael Maguire had to make for the decider? Let me know. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I'll see you in the next one.